All right.
everybody. Yeah. Thank you all so much. Anyone who's tuning in today live or who pops on later on to check out this chat, I'm here with Gio Villalobos from New York City Ballet, who is also now training dancers while he's still dancing full time, which is really impressive and crazy, but good stuff. And we're going to talk all about cross training for dancers today. And Gio will share some of his expertise and what he's learned to be effective for dancers. So I think it's going to be super helpful for all of you who tune in. So thank you so much for joining me, Gio. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your dance story and background?
So I started dancing in Puerto Rico when I was 8 years old. And then after a couple years in Puerto Rico, I ended up going to Cuba for a couple months to train with the Cuban ballet. Actually, Pro Danza, which is Elisa Alonso's daughter's school.
Oh, wow.
And after that, I came back to Puerto Rico. Ended up going over to Oregon Ballet Theater.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first experience in American ballet, as you can say. And then from there, went to New York, did School of American Ballet for about 3 years. And after that, I was asked to join the company. Um, all in all, a very, very concise version of what
Yeah.
many, many things have happened in between and, you know, different awards and different tours and different things. But that's the concise version.
Yeah. And now you've been with City Ballet for how long?
I've been with City Ballet since 2004. So what is that, 13, 14 years? Like
Amazing.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you personally start, like getting into the cross training world?
So I was really lucky. I had my first teacher in Puerto Rico, his name was Roberto Rodriguez. And I want to say like for a whole year before I even did my first ballet step, we did nothing but coordination training and hand-eye coordination and foot-eye coordination and basically just
Wow.
wiring my brain
Yeah.
so that I would be able to understand. And he was very, I think he's very unique in that I don't know many people that do that. And I think he set me up like with a solid foundation because by
Yeah.
the time that I started really doing the ballet, it just soaked right in. And my body was
Right.
able to to take it in, and I was always very ambidextrous, like very like right and left was nice and balanced. Everything was correct in that way. So that's kind of like I always had that uh, I guess unorthodox kind of like training,
Yeah.
and
Wait,
from
hold on.
there,
So
go
wait, I
ahead.
have to cut in. You're
Yeah.
saying you can turn to the left and to the right?
Well, I mean, actually, I'm more of a lefty than I'm a righty.
Oh,
That's
okay.
one thing that,
Yeah.
but like literally, and I think much like younger dancers can relate is that when you're learning new steps, sometimes like you can learn things better with your right, and then when you try to do the
Absolutely.
same like rond de jambe or whatever
Right.
on the left, it just doesn't have the same kind of like kinetic chain connection.
For sure.
Whereas for me, because it was always stressed that like you have to do both sides. A lot of times we started with the left, so that we
Mm-hmm.
weren't always in the same track of starting with the right. So it made my brain kind of develop very
That's
evenly.
great.
Um, so I just kind of carried that philosophy into everything that I learned afterwards.
Right.
But yeah, then I went to Cuba, and in Cuba they actually have a physical like physical training protocol. And even as a kid, I remember because my mother coming from like a more American style of thinking, we were taught like you don't want your kid to do like weights. Like I was like 10
Mm.
years old. They were like, no, 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 that's going to stunt his growth, all that stuff. So when I got there and, they had me doing spots and they had me doing all kinds of stuff, I was kind of like, wow, like this is cool. Like usually they don't let me do this kind of stuff in Puerto Rico, the United States.
Right.
So, and I noticed that the guys there and the women, but the guys, obviously, I was paying attention more to the guys. They were really well defined. They had
Mhm.
really nice legs, super strong. They were able to do huge jumps and land with no problem. So, I that's when I really realized, okay, like this is more than just doing tendus and
Mhm.
fondus and whatnot. But interestingly enough, when I get back to the States, that's what I encounter. Like, you don't have to do anything but ballet. You just have to do ballet. And
Right.
if you keep doing ballet, you're gonna get better at ballet. Which was really like, it just didn't make any sense to me. But um, that's what I found. And then I just kind of carried that on. Thank God, when I got to SAB, they have a great trainer or teacher
Mm.
called Peter Frame, and he kind of teaches the basics of weight training and body weight
Hmm.
training. So I kind of soaked that up, and by the time I joined the company, I used that knowledge to build my body to get into the company,
Yeah.
because I just knew that it was very, very important for me. And then once I got in the company, I decided to go ahead and go all the way, try to start kind of like experimenting and finding out what would be the best approach for me to get into the best shape to be able to. For me, it was always about removing doubts and
Mm.
removing thought processes from my mind, so that when I'm performing on stage, I can really just focus on having fun and going all out, as opposed to having to be like, oh, I don't have the stamina. I know I don't have the stamina, so I have to kind of like take it easy until I get to that very difficult, part of the variation or whatever. And then once that happens, I can kind of like calm down, start breathing
Right.
again. So I wanted to be able to just kind of eradicate that whole thought process and just be like, tiredness? What tiredness? Like what
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
That's amazing. So tell me, how did you then become a trainer? Are you certified through something or
So
you
so
just,
I'm in the process of certification right now.
right?
What happened was, so I was, like I said, I'm a teacher. That's actually what I want to do, or what I'm really passionate about. And for many, many years, I was known as the fitness guy
Mm-hmm.
at New York City Ballet, like, just because everybody always saw me on tour with my sandbag, and like bringing my bikes on tour and doing
Mm-hmm.
crazy like 67-mile rides and
Yeah.
Copenhagen, all this stuff. So people just always knew me as the fitness guy. And what happened was, one of my colleagues came up to me and said, well, she had to do Arabian and
Mm-hmm.
Nutcracker. And for those of you that don't know, it's a very revealing costume. You have a midriff, you have to show up your stomach and everything. And so she came to me and she said, Gio, I really need your help. I want to get casted to do this, and I know I have a chance. I just have to kind of like really get it, really shred it. And I was like, totally. Like,
Yeah.
I can totally help you. We put her on a 6-week program, I believe it was 6-week program, and it was like 6 days a week, 3 days with me, 3 days by herself. Lots of cardio. We tweaked her diet a little bit, got rid of the dairy, and just kind of like just those minor tweaks here and there. And within 6 weeks, she was perfect shape. She
Yeah.
got casted. She did a
Yeah.
great job. She was really happy. And of course, that didn't take long before other people were like, "Hey, wait a minute! I have black and white ballet coming up." And I think that what attracted them to me was just the fact that I know firsthand what they're capable of doing. Meaning, like,
Mm-hmm.
with their schedule, I've done it all. You know, I've done all the experiments on my body, so so I can tell people like, yeah, no, like leg day before you have to do Barocco tonight, not gonna happen. Like, with me, not gonna happen. I'm not gonna do
Right.
that to you. Um, Now, so I know exactly what, when they come to me and they say like, I want to get ready for this particular role. It's like I know everything that that role uh,
Entails.
entails,
Yeah.
so I can kind of uh, tailor everything so that it matches the intensity of that. So that's where I think a lot of people just saw the benefit of that, and they saw the results. So I was just really, really, really happy that I could help people achieve their best results, because that's really what makes me happy. The fact that at the end of the day, like I'm in the wings cheering for them, and being like, come on, you can do this, and you look amazing. So that's really what drives me.
That's so great. I think that, You touched too on something that a lot of dancers face in looking for help with cross training. I
Hmm.
think I've heard from a number of dancers, oh yeah, like I tried to work with this trainer, and if they have no dance background, they're like, first of all, like super amazed at how strong dancers already are, and then like they
Yeah.
don't know what they're going through
Hmm.
schedule wise and
Hmm.
performance wise and what needs
So,
to really be done.
as someone with experience, like first of all, like most trainers, even trainers who train me, they get really impressed with certain like attributes that we have,
Right.
completely missing certain like key like like really like atrophied muscles and things because they're kind of like just like wow like I thought like especially with guys are like I thought dancers were like really weak and like you can actually do things and so they're kind of impressed
Right.
by that but then
Yeah.
you know they miss other things, um, which we can talk about later in terms of like, our glute med and our vastus medialis, like
Mm.
we're totally atrophied in dancers. So a lot of times that they kind of like poop and
Yeah.
they're still focused on like how amazing, you're doing. And there's that, and then there's also the other thing, which is they push too far. They give you
Mhm.
so much because they're used to dealing with sedentary lifestyle people.
Right.
And even if they're dealing with athletes, maybe they're dealing with, like for example, I go to a place where like a lot of New York Giants train, and it's like, sure, you would think, they have a very, very uh, hard schedule and whatnot, but when you look at it, they don't. I mean, compared to us,
Right. Yeah.
even by their own standards, the one of the coaches told me is like, yeah, I mean, we we train, a couple hours every day, and then we have our big game on Sunday, and then we have a couple of days to rest up, and then we start over again.
Hmm.
Versus like you're in like every day, 6 days a week. You're training during the day, and then you're actually performing at night like full power. So it's a much more stressful situation. I wish we had the days to recover.
Rest days.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So tell me, what do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that dancers have about cross training?
So misconception number one is actually the like you don't need anything but ballet
Hmm.
for a ballet. Like that is the most. I mean, and I found that in many many places from many many people, and teachers and people who were like their opinion holds weight.
Right.
And they would tell you, no, like don't do anything that's not ballet because you're gonna get injured, you're gonna get tight, you're gonna get all these different things.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest misconception because to me, um, one, I mean, most dancers that I encounter, like professional dancers, remember, I'm working with professional dancers
Yeah.
at the highest level.
Yeah.
Most dancers that I get are completely like cardiovascularly challenged. Like their stamina is not where it needs to be in order to
Hmm.
be. Sometimes, I mean, it's amazing because then I'm like, wow, like I've actually seen you do amazing things on stage and you're an incredible dancer and it's kind of like amazing. And I see it when they come off stage and they're dying. I mean,
Right.
they look beautiful on stage. You would never know. But
Hmm.
when they come off stage, they literally sound like they're about to go into like, well, they don't, they are in a hyperbolic like a
Yeah.
state. So that I think it's like, as a teacher, I would ask those teachers who tell me that, I'd be like, you're hindering the efforts of the student to increase their stamina and their cardiovascular ability,
Right.
which is going to make it everything else way easier. And then the other thing that you have to think about is the fact that that whole notion that only ballet works for ballet, it puts you at a disadvantage later on in life because it solidifies the kinetic chains. It doesn't give you any like variety of movement. So you're going to end up with really severe atrophies that are I mean that can be career ending. I mean, for example, a lot of dancers come to me and they're very pronated, right?
Hmm.
And like we're talking again, like professional dancers, but they have this like pronation syndrome, and it's just because they have been turning out from the knee down for so long, and the knee is not tracking over the middle toe,
Hmm.
and they never did any pedestrian work. They never did any squats. They never did any like when they walk. I remember when I was a kid, it was kind of cool to be like seen like walking like this.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I got the dancer walk. But in reality, that is the worst
Yeah.
thing you can do, because you're training your body in an unnatural way. And what it means is that, when you stop dancing, you're more likely to have a hip surgery. You're more likely to have to walk with the cane, because things were not properly placed. So, that to me is the biggest misconception, that you only have to do ballet, and if you do ballet, you'll be great at ballet, and that's all that matters. It's like absolutely not. Actually, doing the cross training is going to make your ballet better, because you're going to have. Um, it was explained to me that when you have a good range of motion both ways, and you can actually turn in and turn out, it increases your level of turnout. So
Right.
people think, oh, I just need to stay turned out. Well, actually, that just kind of like atrophies the muscles and gets them stiff. So being able to go in and out, it actually increases your turnout. So in my opinion, eh, we need to tackle that myth like dead on, and get dancers, especially young dancers, to think about these things. If they want to be able to have a long career and be able to walk correctly afterwards. I mean, thank God for
Right.
me, because of everything that my teacher did. Um, One second, yeah. Everything that my teacher did made it so that even to this day, I haven't had a single surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had to deal with many issues like that. So,
Yeah. What's your personal sort of cross training routine, or like what exercises do you try to make sure that you always work into your routine?
so for me, variety is key. To
Okay.
me, I don't like doing the same thing twice. I'll do it when I have to. If I'm in a program in terms of like trying to build certain muscles and whatnot, and I'm trying to make sure that I systematically increase resistance and whatnot. Sure, I'll keep the same program going for a couple of weeks. But I like variety. So to me, I like things that are easily done at home or anywhere. So gymnastic rings.
Mm-hmm.
We have a park right next door, and I
Oh,
just throw them
nice.
over one of the trees and
Yeah.
do my pull-ups and stuff. Do parallettes, running, biking, swimming. I used to be a swimmer growing up, so that's always a go-to. Kettlebells. I love kettlebells, just because there's nothing like that, ballistic movement and the explosiveness. And there's certain muscles that you really, and I think every dancer that I've trained with, that I use kettlebells with, we get to those kettlebell swings and they're like, oh wow, I've never felt my inner thighs like this.
Mm.
And it actually helps them like trigger them when they're doing their like, fast tandus or whatnot, because they've already kind of like made that mental connection. So that's one that I find very, very helpful. But yeah, just variety in general, um, and especially outside. I love things
Yeah.
outside.
Being in the studio, I guess, and then the theater for so much time, it's probably nice to mix it up in that way.
Yes, yes. We our theater is very, very dark. If
Yeah.
anybody's been to our theater, we have no windows, so we're
Yeah.
literally like a solid cement block. So whenever I can, I need vitamin D. I need
Yeah.
fresh air. It's one of the main reasons why I moved out here to New Jersey.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. I do want to say now there's a bunch of people on live with us. If you have any questions for Gio, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll tackle those things as well. But I've got more. So, what are some of the cross training exercises and things like that that you have found to help the dancers you're working with?
So cross training things for the dancers. So again, I try to deal with every dancer like specifically, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody is completely different. Each person has kind of like a fingerprint. They have all these different things. But overall, one of the things that, like I said earlier, see the pronation. That's one of the things
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very common, in the knee not tracking in line um, with the middle toe. So that, like I said earlier, it was the glute medius and the vastus medialis. So those two we need to get really, really strong. So we'll do things like kettlebell swings. Kettlebell swings are awesome. Um, Squats, kettlebell squats or barbell squats, or at first we always start with an air squat just to teach the right technique.
Yeah.
You're looking at things like step downs, so like box step down, or or a step up, where you're stepping up onto a surface. Um, Things like crab walking with an elastic band
Right.
around your uh, ankles, going back and forth, touch the wall, come back, things like that. Because like I said, most of us are atrophied in the hip area and in that knee stabilizing area. So I try to focus on those. Now, if somebody comes to me and I see none of those issues, say, some people come to me and they're completely fine from the waist down. They just want to have more definition in the upper body
Hmm.
or whatnot, and then we put them in a different protocol, just trying to get them to either gain a little bit of muscle mass or just to like shred and get rid of any subcutaneous fat or anything to make sure that it looks nice and clean.
Right. What do you say to dancers who are, and maybe not the ones who you've worked with, but any dancers who might be watching now, anyone who's afraid of working with weights? Because I hear that a lot.
Okay, I get this a lot too.
Yeah.
Every time, so thank God that when dancers come to me, they know me, they trust me, they know that I've been doing this for a long time, so they listen to me, which is the key
Hmm.
part. And that's why the key thing for me, as it should be for everybody, is learn the technique. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's running. I don't care if it's squatting. I don't care if it's deadlifting, whatever. You need to learn the technique. And that's why we'll do everything without weight first, making sure, because especially dancers,
Hmm.
we spent millions of hours, performing a plie, for example. You've done like millions of hours of plies. So when I say to somebody, go squat, they immediately go into this plie-like move where the hips are traveling straight down and the knees are traveling past the toes, and they're loading the front
Right.
of the thighs and doing all that. And then they're going to tell me, oh, Gio, this feels like I'm building like thunder thighs. And I'm like, okay, well, because we're doing it incorrectly. So here's the thing. We're going to start with the squat. You're going to start sending the hips backwards. You're going to keep the knee over the middle of your foot. So it shouldn't pass the laces. It should stay over the middle of the foot. And you send the booty back all the way. And you keep that 45-degree angle in the back. So now when you do that, and usually they do it, um, then they feel their hamstring glute connection down there. And they're like,
Hmm.
oh, and I'm like, yeah, this is what we're talking about. And
Right.
especially when they get on the bike, they get that a lot. I don't want to get thunder thighs. And like the bike is one of the few, most dancers don't like to run. I mean, they have all these
Right.
different myths and stuff about running. So it's really difficult. And I don't push it because I understand they have a mental block about it. So it's like, but I need something to be able to
Yeah.
push your stamina. So the bike, is like, okay, that's a happy medium. We all agree there's less impact and whatnot. So most dancers will agree to do that. And but in the beginning, they say, oh, like I feel my thighs, I feel my thighs, and it's like again, it's all about technique. So I
Yeah.
start telling them keep that neutral ankle, keep thinking like you have like dog poop on the bottom of your shoe, and you're
Uh-huh.
wiping the poop off the bottom of your shoe.
Right.
And within like 30 seconds, they're like, oh, okay, now I'm triggering my hamstrings. Fantastic. So it's like everything else. You just have to know the technique and you'll be just fine. The weights actually, they're not going to give you big muscles. I have girls that like, are tiny, and when I give them 10, 12 pounds, they're like, "Oh my God, Gio, you're going to make me so huge." And we've been doing it now for like 6 months, totally
No,
fine.
yeah.
Now we're up to
Right.
15, totally fine. What's happening is that you have more strength. What's
Right.
happening is that now they're finding that when they're going to partnering, even though the man is the one doing the partnering, anytime they have to do any kind of like arm connection, they feel strong. Their back is connected. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Everything is connected now, so they feel stronger. And I mean, my wife is like super tiny, and she's already doing 12.5s bench press on each hand, no problem. And
Yeah.
she's not like
She's
huge
not
like that.
blowing up, becoming
No,
a
no,
huge
no.
muscle. Yeah.
No, what especially females need to understand is that so, you know, you don't have the same amount of like testosterone, for example, and other hormones that help that growth. So
Right.
that's not to say that like a man might or a male may actually like grow faster and than a female, but one, you don't have the same hormones. Two, like you're not. I tell girls I used to train with a volleyball player, a female volleyball player, and I mean this woman was incredible, and she looked like beefy like me,
Yeah.
and but what I tell girls is like she ate 5,000 calories a day. Like
Right.
you're nowhere close to like
Hmm.
what she and she was doing that for a living. She was squatting 250, every
Right.
day. So it's like you're not going to be at that level. You would have to eat like a truck and work out like you're a football player to get to that level. Reality is that at the rep range that we're doing, with the weight that you're doing, with the amount of calorie intake that you're doing, it's just not going to
Yeah.
happen.
It's great that you shared that because I do think that that's one of those things that just is kind of still a big rumor, especially in the dance world. And there will be some teachers who you encounter who still are like, oh no, girls, don't touch a weight. You'll bulk up in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
So
and
it's good to be myth busting, I think.
yeah. And what happens is that a lot of those girls will end up with like really weird, like, I've trained these girls that have never touched a weight before,
Yeah.
and like their shoulders like can't stay in place, literally, like they'll dislocate a shoulder really easily, and it's like, wow, we really need to get, all those back muscles, working
Hmm.
and pulled together because that can happen on stage. I'm trying to partner you. We do a little like lean out, and all of a sudden,
Right.
pop, there goes your,
Yeah.
it's like we need to think about ballet as what it is. It is an art form. I totally agree with that. But because of the physical demands, it starts to blur the line between like athleticism and art. So you
Hmm.
you do have to take care of that. And I think that in this day and age, I mean, it's self-evident. You're kind of like at a disadvantage if you don't explore this aspect of it. You're at a disadvantage because there's going to be people like me that are totally fully taking advantage of it.
Right. What are some of the best ways to build stamina for a long variation or a long ballet?
So first of all, when I get somebody, and again, we're talking about high-level professional dancers. When I get somebody, the first thing I do is trying to establish a base. So can they go 10 minutes on any given machine,
Hmm.
working at 60, 65, 70% of their like max? That's what I tell them. Like, give me 65 to 70% of their max.
Right.
So you should be able to kind of like talk to me, like when I ask a question, you should be able to talk, but like maybe every once in a while you're like, hold on, yeah, now I can talk to you. Um, and if I can get 10 minutes from them, okay, then we bump it up to 20. Once I have that baseline where like this is great, and we've gotten their breathing down, because a lot of times they're breathing through their mouth the whole time, and
Yeah.
they're running out of air. So once we get that down, then we can start doing intervals. And usually I start with like a 1-to-1 ratio, like 30-30, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. That could be like sprinting or climbing or just something that just requires more energy. Um, and then once I feel like they're really comfortable with that 30-30, when we go to 40-20, so 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. And then once they're really like really good with that, then we'll throw in a couple of the like 50-10s, 50 seconds on,
Hmm.
10 seconds off. Once they really have that down and they feel really good, I mean, by this point, we're going into overkill. For the majority of like dancers, I feel like just finishing with those intervals um, will be would be enough. And then
Hmm.
another thing that I like to do with them is if they're talking about a specific variation, is to take this specific variation, take the time of it, and we're gonna, depending on how long it is, we're gonna double it, or we're gonna like time and a half it, and we're gonna
Right.
throw some intervals in there to try to mimic. And this is more psychological than anything else. We're just trying to get you for example, if I know that 3 minutes into your variation, here comes the real work, then it makes sense for me to take you 3 minutes in, start to push the envelope. And since I believe that you want to set the bar higher, just go and extend the period. So if it was only 20 seconds, that next phrase is only 20 seconds, and then you're gonna have a calm down and the rest of the variation. I'm gonna double that. I'm gonna say 40 seconds. So definitely in your mind, it's just you have all these repetitions of having done this beforehand. It makes it so that when you're on stage, it's like this is a piece of cake. It's only like this is a piece of cake. I've done this so many
Right.
times, and the other thing is that it allows them to have a controlled environment where they can let go of all pretenses, because it's really difficult when you're on stage. You're holding your whole persona. You're holding your whole thing. You don't want to look tired. You want to look like you're having fun and just breezing. So giving them the opportunity to experience the toughness and the short of breath, the whole thing, and to be able to express it, to be able to be in a position to breathe hard, say whatever insult they want to throw at me, and whatever. It gives them the opportunity to have the experience, and then when they go on stage, again, it's just piece of cake. There's
Right.
nothing to worry about.
Where do you find the balance between working to obviously improve what you have to do on stage and then overworking, like too much cross training or,
Right.
too much work on stamina or whatever it might be?
Right. So this is when like you have to listen to your own body. This is where you have to be the master of your own body. I can't tell you what that is. I tell my dancers all the time. I see. I build like a psychological rapport with my dancers, so I know who tends to lie to me, who tends to say like,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, I'm fine,
I'm
like
fine.
totally,
Yeah.
let's just push through, and I'll be like, okay, fine, let's push through, fantastic, and in my mind, I'm already taking things off the list that we're gonna do that day, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I know that like I'm gonna keep them motivated and keep them feeling like, yeah, we're pushing through, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, the burpees gone, the like that heart circuit that we were gonna do gone. Like we're gonna
Yeah.
do restorative work today. We're gonna do this and that. Um, so, but then I have other dancers that are the opposite. There's other dancers that are like, oh no, like I can't really do much. And I'll be like, okay, don't worry. Like we'll take it easy. And then slowly but surely I keep ramping it up, ramping it up, ramping it up
Mm-hmm.
until they don't even realize that they did a full like hard workout.
Right.
Um, but I'm guilty. I've crossed the line many, many times. I mean, I used to. I mean, I trained for a whole marathon while doing while doing uh, my whole season at City Ballet. So
Oh,
there were
wow.
many days that I did like 8 miles in the morning and then like going straight to class.
Yeah.
Um, uh, in that sense, like cold bath, like literally ice to the neck is
Yeah.
basically what what makes it happen. But yeah, and yeah, just listen to your body. Um, of course, I'm always of the opinion that when you can, I mean, push the envelope. You're never gonna find out.
Right.
I never knew that I could, go to a spinning class at 7 o'clock in the morning and spend like 745 calories and then go do Chinese at night. Like I
Yeah.
never knew that I had it in me. And did like the first time was it terrible? Like did I feel like, oh my God, this is a terrible idea? Yes. But but then I found out that it was okay, that my body could handle it. And that's not to say that everybody can handle that.
Right.
I have a very robust body that can pretty much take anything. But you know, you have to kind of like play around and don't be afraid to kind of like play with that line.
Definitely. Great advice. I think it's a big thing where dancers sometimes it gets into a place of self-abuse where they're like, "Oh, if I just push myself harder and harder and harder, I'll get better and better and better." And it's definitely a
Well,
matter of finding that balance.
yes, and you just touched on something that I wasn't even thinking about when you asked the question. And yes,
Yeah.
there are people that use like working out as a like masochistic
Hmm.
um endeavor. Like you're just trying to
Right.
like they're never good enough, so they have to always keep. And like my advice is if you find yourself having that kind of mentality, then okay, perhaps this is not the best kind of like thought process for you.
Right.
Um, because where I'm coming from and what I try to get people or like gear them towards is like just this in unquestionable like thirst for like for new movement, new
Hmm.
movement patterns, because especially, I mean, like when you get to be a professional, like at our level, like we've been doing this for many years, you know.
Right.
Okay, so we're almost going on to like 20 years of like of doing this
Yeah.
stuff, more than that, yeah. So it's like your body, at least like for me and some of my colleagues, it's like we need more movement. And some of us, I've done the hip hop class and gyrotonics and Pilates and
Yeah.
uh, like you name it, flamenco, like salsa, merengue, everything. And then, that's the way that I approach the whole fitness thing. It's like, yeah, you want to just keep throwing new vocabulary so that your body is supple and especially pedestrian vocabulary because
Right.
we're so specific that for us the more time that we can have doing pedestrian stuff is the stuff that's gonna like save you for after you're done dancing.
Yeah. Awesome. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today? Anything you would say are like your biggest tips for dancers in cross training or anything like that? You've touched on some
Yeah,
awesome stuff already, which is super
yeah. I
valuable.
mean, for me, like the biggest thing is training, like spending as much time as you can in a pedestrian
Mm-hmm.
um, stance and work in those modes of movement because we've spent so many literally millions thousands of hours doing these turned out positions that there is no need to continue dialing the same
Right.
kinetic chain, and we are actually like humans bipedal, like we do have certain movements that are like organic to us, that we should be like very good at. So I always say like spend as much time as you can turned in. Um, do like as a kid, like I tell like if there are any parents watching, like it is healthier for your kid to have both pedestrian and the ability to turn out.
Right.
It's going to make them healthier in the long run in terms of like not having like knee surgeries or ankle like problems and stuff like that, hip problems, back problems. I mean, it goes all the way up. So that's what I would really recommend. And yeah, like just like, so start with that. Then nutrition, make sure that your nutrition is on point, which is what you're doing. Look, making sure that you're taking enough calories. That's usually the biggest problem when you're dancing all day and
Mm-hmm.
having to perform at night. Um, yeah, and also try to make sure that you're taking care of the other quality of life um, issues because and now I'm talking to like the professional dancer that's
Right.
actually doing it like 6 days a week. Um, that is like, yeah, just make sure you have quality of life things like your meditation every morning or your walk in the morning or whatever that keeps you centered, your nutrition, and then this whole physical side of things that fitness you have to. I mean, you don't have to, but I think it's gonna make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And all those three things together, what they do is that they individually make sure that you don't have to worry about anything. Because
Right.
if I don't have to worry about nutrition, this I have lots of energy. I'm dancing all night. I don't have to worry about hitting a little like dip in the middle of like the third ballet of the night at 10 o'clock. You know,
Right.
that would be sad.
Well, Gio, thank you so very much for joining me today and sharing all of your knowledge and insights.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to share it with the whole dancer audience. And anyone watching now or later, you can connect with Gio on Instagram at ballet dancer underscore strong.
Yeah, you got it.
Right. Cool. And yeah, he'll be posting there and you can see, some of the dancers that he works with on his Instagram. And then you can see him working out and lots of awesome inspiration to
Yeah,
be
I try
found
to I try
there.
to post at least once a week or twice a week, and just tons of like plant-based recipes
Yeah.
and all kinds of like, dancers doing workouts and stuff like that. Just keeping everybody motivated and to see that, you know, we're in a post like fame world. Like, ballet is one of the few art forms that still kind of retains that divide between the audience
Hmm.
and the dancers. And I think it's awesome when you get to see dancers kind of like being human and
Absolutely.
being everyday people, because it kind of, I don't know, it kind of shows that I mean, it's beautiful. They can be gods and goddesses on stage, but that, they're still like you and me and
Hmm.
everybody else.
We're all human.
Yes,
Thanks again so much, Gio.
no problem.